Chester, thank you so much for joining us for this. I have a couple of questions. One that comes to mind, and it's really important for me, especially because I think of this when I'm involved in such situations. For someone like yourself who has traveled the world in the many different settings, for example, you're playing to arenas to 600,000 people, or you're playing in a jazz club to maybe 20 people, 50 people. What are you thinking? How do you contextualize yourself in those places to be effective musically in the context?
Wow, good question. Well, it's actually changed a lot over the years. I mean, obviously younger, more impressed by stuff, and unfortunately probably impressed with yourself and what you're doing. What it's come to at this point, I get so wrapped up in the music that I'm playing and trying to, really wanting to play it the right way. And one thing I've become much more aware of over the years is responding to not only the sound of the band, but the sound of the room. Okay, so I play to the room. So the dynamics, obviously there's much more subtlety you can, pull off in a jazz club as opposed to a hockey rink. And it's kind of nice to respond to those things. I really love the power and the energy of like several thousand people, and where you can just go for it, we can just kind of like beat the drums up, But I absolutely love playing like at a whisper and doing the other. So yeah, at this point, they're each as valuable and wonderful,
And how do you perform? I mean, when you're playing for that many people, whether it's 100,000 or 600,000, you're playing differently. You're projecting what you're hearing musically. What do you take out? What do you focus on that you don't do in a smaller setting?
Well, I don't even think it's conscious, but you absolutely react to the energy. When you have that much energy coming at you, obviously any performance with an audience is a trade-off. It's like you got audiences where they sit there as doors, they're just dead as a doornail, and you do your job, but when you get people into it, it just brings something else out of you. So yeah, there's definitely that. There's no question that there's that part. But again, I'm like, I pray a lot these days, and the kind of constant prayer for me is that I've got the right attitude, that I'm going to go in there and serve. I mean, that's what we do. We serve, It's like I'm serving, my employer, but I'm serving the audience as well. And my job is to just give it the best shot, whether that means like, really powerhouse the thing or finesse it. Either way, I try to keep the same attitude that I'm there to do the best job and support what I'm there to support.
Right, and that's important, of course. But the feedback one gets from an arena situation, you're not getting a feedback, and you don't even see the audience most of the time.
That's
So
true.
you don't even know. And in a small setting, you're having a conversation with individuals, not just an audience, and that's a big difference as well.
It is, absolutely.
So how do you? I know we all would be thinking the same. You're not thinking I'm playing this music. There's also an audience with whom you have a relationship with besides everyone else on stage.
Well, I kind of cheat a little bit. I close my eyes and kind of forget they're there. I do. Mainly because, unless I have to watch for a visual cue, I don't want to be distracted by anything but the music itself. And it's just so easy to happen. You're looking around and you almost can get overwhelmed, And, there's the other side of all that wonderfulness. Oh goodness, I don't know if you've ever played like outdoor festivals in the middle of summer, when people start passing out and they have to lift them over the rails. It's like, I don't want to see that stuff. So, as much as I'm enjoying the audience, totally into it, I have to remind myself to open my eyes and engage, because my preference is to just focus on the music, just the sound itself, because that's what I'm primarily there to do. Even in jazz, I've got my own group these days, and we tour it, and I have to keep reminding myself to open my eyes. But then it's almost in the jazz world, they kind of forgive you for it because they want you to go in and go deep,
Right. And the other thing too is having such an expanded career that you've had and continue to have. I mean, you've played with people like Frank Zappa and beyond. I mean, all these great people, and the context is different. Whether you're working, preparing yourself to work with someone like a Frank Zappa, that creative genius, to a Phil Collins, Genesis type of things, and then playing your own band. Like, what kind of thought is in your mind as you were preparing, and that path that takes you where you're going? Because it's, that beginning is definitely a different spot than where you are today.
Yeah, well, it's like the preparation is everything. I mean, you hit on the right word. Preparation is key. You really want to go in with your part, having your parts down. I mean, some stuff the Zappa stuff, especially at that point in my life, was the most challenging thing, that I'd ever run into, and actually probably ever, And, I mean, my routine was we'd rehearse 8 hours a day. Rehearsal was from 11 to 7. Go out, get something to eat on the way back to the hotel, because when I first started playing with them, I didn't even have time to get a place yet. So I was staying in a little hotel. Go back to the room, go to bed about 11, 12, wake up at about 3 or 4, practice for 2 hours, go back to sleep, get up, grab breakfast on the way to rehearsal, and do it all over again. But I mean, you were so tired after rehearsal you had to sleep, but I didn't set an alarm, but I would wake up every single night and practice. And there was the guy that sang with him and played sax with him, Napoleon Murphy Brock. We both came into the band at the same time. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm up practicing, banging on the bed. I heard his saxophone crank up at about 3 in the morning. He was on the same schedule, But it really required that, that music was so difficult. I've learned a lot more these days, but I still have to prepare just as much with my own group. We're doing some originals, a lot of arrangements of covered, jazz cover things. But our rehearsals are pretty intense. We don't waste time,
Right, and was it the same thing with working, for example, when you're working with like a major public act, such as Phil Collins or anything like that? You learn the music. How much liberty does one get?
Well, yeah, that was interesting, because that was the most different thing I've done in that sense. I mean, I played with 2 drummers with Zappa, but I mean, Frank kind of worked out the parts. Some of it we created, at the time of it was new stuff. The thing with the difference with playing with Genesis and Phil's solo stuff was that, for me, it was actually a cover gig. So, but by then, early on, Phil knew my playing pretty well. The good thing about working with a drummer is we speak the same language. You don't have, this guy's not stumbling trying to explain what he wants. The bad thing is that he knows what he wants. So sometimes it's a pain, But actually, it was really fair. My job was to do what he had already done, but I actually was allowed quite a bit of freedom. But I think when we reached the point where I was trusted enough to know that I'm not just going to go nuts and just do something stupid on the gig, then they just felt like, what, do what you do. You need to be yourself. But these parts of the arrangement, like this fill is part of the arrangement, for example. But within that, I'm going to stick to the song, but it's still, if you listen to the difference in the studio versions and the live versions, I mean, there's definitely a different feel. I mean, we don't play exactly alike,
Great. And the other thing, too, is for someone who's preparing these days, I mean, the philosophy of being, taking your rightful place in the music and basically what we're doing today. I mean, more people are out there playing. Some people say they're not, but we see a lot more music going on.
Right.
Although the music is coming out of the schools, is being kind of cut out here and there. But where do you think this is going from what you've been seeing?
Wow. Well, I mean, I teach in a university, so I get a pretty up-close look. And I'm real hopeful about it. I mean, man, it's just going to keep growing just like it's always done. There's going to be more and more innovation. The skill level just gets higher and higher every generation. And I don't feel discouraged at all about any of it, because from what I see, it's like it's exciting,
Right, and also the new folks coming up. There's a whole global view that's happening.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
more connected than ever. We know what's going on. For example, our work in Cuba, those people are hearing what we're doing. So when I go there, I see their levels like going way through the roof.
Oh, wow.
And it's really incredible that everybody's paying attention. Now you can because of internet, because of all the
Exactly,
technology. And the world has become such a smaller place. And those of us who are fortunate enough to travel and see it and compare, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's major shifts in Asia, major movements. So I think it's an evening out, and more material is coming out to the table that we all have access to as well.
Yeah.
What's your? I mean, you've traveled a lot, of course, and
Well,
how does that feel where you're
Well,
standing?
it's interesting because for years I've always, whenever I've heard something that just absolutely touches me, that pushes my buttons, and I don't know what it is, in almost every case, I'd say 90% of the cases, it's always music that's a blend from different cultures. I mean, there's just something that happens when you get people from radically different backgrounds and they make music together. And I think you still have enough tradition, you still have enough purists that the kind of pure forms still exist, and they will. But I think this merging of cultures is, man, it's just wonderful, you know.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also, because a lot of the people who are involved still maintain that you have to learn the roots first, the tradition first, and then you evolve. Because even those traditions evolve themselves. I mean, some people think that the tradition is the tradition and it's frozen in time. It's not. They evolve as well. And if we all evolve and then you put those elements together, then there's a different evolution, which makes it incredible, as you say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are those that get stuck. It's like, no, it has to be like this. Well, if you listen here and then went 10 years down the road in that same person's life, it's different, you know. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's, and like I say, in the jazz world, I mean, there's still lots of purists. I mean, you don't cross lines. You do, you know. I grew up playing jazz from the very beginning. But I'm just not a purist. I just love music too much, you know. It's like, I mean, it's a privilege to play all these different kinds of music, you know.
And I guess that makes the difference to someone having a life of music that really understands that and lives it. And I mean, you're still active and you're still practicing and learning.
Oh, yeah, especially after today.
No, I mean, here at KoSA, we have like a total percussion experience, and then we get exposed to everyone else's ideas. And, you know, everybody learns. I mean, you think, oh, I never thought of that. And
that's the beauty of it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chester.
Oh, man, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for letting me be here.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.